So move on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my UFC men's pound for pound list. I'll be sharing my men's pound for pound list, ranking them from number 10 all the way down to number 1. So at number 10 on my list, I have Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling is currently 22-4, former bantamweight champion of the world. Aljamain Sterling, before his loss this Saturday night against Sean O'Malley, was on a 9-fight winning streak. 8 victories coming via submission on his resume, and I know that his 5 of them came via rear naked choke submission victories. So Aljamain Sterling is one of the best mat grapplers in the sport today. He's number 10 on my list. At number 9, I have the new bantamweight champion, Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley is currently 17-1, has not lost a fight since 2020. 12 of his victories coming by way of technical knockout or knockout. Just picked up the biggest win of his career thus far against Aljamain Sterling to become the new bantamweight champion of the world Saturday night. It is one of the most popular and exciting superstars in the MMA today. He's number 9 on my list. At number 8, I have the flyweight champion, Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja at number 8 on my list. He's currently 26-5. Became the new flyweight champion of the sport in the side of the UFC world last month, defeating Brandon Moreno via decision, become the new flyweight champion of the world. In my opinion, that fight between Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno is in the conversation for being one of the best fights of the year, in my opinion. And the calendar year 2023, that was a great fight that we saw last month between the two respective fighters. Alexandre Pantoja is number 8 on my list. At number 7, I have Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman is currently 20-3, one of the greatest welterweight champions that UFC has ever seen. He held the welterweight title for a total of 1,267 days. When he defeated Tyron Woodley back in 2019 in dominating fashion to become the new welterweight champion in the UFC, he went on to become one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time, having a total of 6 different title defenses, successfully defending the title on 6 different occasions before losing the welterweight championship to Leon Edwards late in 2022. He's number 7 on my list. At number 6, I have Leon Edwards, who is currently the welterweight champion. Leon Edwards is 21-3. A quote from the Nature Boy Ric Flair: "In order to be the man, you gotta beat the man." And that's what Leon Edwards did to become the new welterweight king of that division late last year in 2022 in shocking fashion. With late in round 5 with 40 to 30 seconds to go, Leon Edwards shocked the MMA world when he defeated Kamaru Usman by knockout to become the new welterweight champion. And he proved that win over Kamaru Usman last year was not a fluke when the two respective fighters fought again early in 2023 in March, when Leon Edwards successfully defended his welterweight championship against Kamaru Usman. So he has proven that he's a legit champion. He is number 6 on my list. At number 5, I have Charles Olivera. Charles Olivera is currently 34-9. He has the most submission victories in UFC history. I do believe that Charles Olivera is one of the greatest UFC lightweights in UFC history. And I've said this several. It's documented that you guys can check my receipts on the Combat Series when I compare his resume to Khabib's. And I do believe that Charles Olivera does have a better resume in terms of lightweight division resume. He does have a better resume than Khabib, racking up victories against Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Ben Darnish. Charles Olivera has been an absolute nightmare in that lightweight division, and he's number 5 on my list, one of the best in the world today. At number 4, I have Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya is currently 24-2, currently the reigning defending middleweight champion of the world, has won the title on 2 separate occasions, one of the greatest middleweight fighters of all time in UFC history, in my opinion. His resume speaks for itself, being a 2-time middleweight champion, having victories against Anderson Silva, Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero, and now Alex Pereira to add to his resume, who he defeated in April to become the middleweight champion again in the UFC. Israel Adesanya is out of this world, one of the greatest middleweight fighters of all time. He's number 4 on my list. At number 3, I have the lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is currently 24-1, the greatest mat wrestler in the MMA today as we speak. I do believe he's the greatest mat wrestler currently active in the MMA world. Learned from his great mentor and the great Khabib, who was a dominant specimen in his own right when he was the former lightweight champion in the UFC. Islam Makhachev has done something that nobody else could say they've done in the UFC, and that's defeat Charles Oliveira and Alexander Volkanovski back-to-back times. Late in 2022, Islam Makhachev became the lightweight champion, defeating Charles Oliveira via submission. The submission artist made him submit to become the new lightweight champion. And then earlier in the year 2023, he defeated Alexander Volkanovski by decision to retain the lightweight championship, and has proven why he's one of the best of the world today. And if he could defeat Charles Oliveira in October in a rematch again, defeat him on 2 separate occasions, I do believe that we're going to have a serious conversation that Islam Makhachev is the best fighter in the sport today. He's number 3 on my list. And number 2, I have the featherweight champion, Alexander Volkanovski. Alexander Volkanovski is a well-oiled machine. I do believe he's the best all-around fighter in the sport today. He could beat you striking. He could beat you on the ground grappling. He has it all. He's really a well-oiled machine in that octagon. A hard guy to beat, and his resume has said that for himself. He's currently 12-1 in the UFC since dating back to 2016, and his only loss came in the beginning of the year when he dared himself to be great and climb up a weight class to fight Islam Makhachev. Unsuccessful. Lost that fight by decision. Was unsuccessful to become the lightweight champion, but in that featherweight division, he has had that championship on lock and has had 5 successful title defenses in the featherweight division. Alexander Volkanovski is currently number 2 on my list. And at number 1, I have the heavyweight champion, Jon Jones. The baddest man on the planet to me is the best men's pound-for-pound fighter in the sport of UFC. The most feared man in combat, throughout combat sports today, is Jon Jones. Whether that's MMA, whether that's boxing, Jon Jones is the most feared man in combat sports. Now, there is a argument to be made for you guys watching and listening that you guys might say Islam Makhachev should be higher, or Alexander Volkanovski should be higher. One of those 2 men should be number 1 on my pound-for-pound list. Let me tell you guys this. The only argument that you could say those 2 fighters should be over top of Jon Jones is due to the fact that Jon Jones had some inactivity late in the 2010s during that decade, which slowed his momentum down. Inactivity, was not present to have a lot of fights. That's the only argument that you guys can say that Jon Jones does not deserve to be the men's number 1 pound-for-pound man in the sport of MMA right now. But inactivity is the only argument that people have. Jon Jones, to me, is the number 1 fighter in the UFC until he hangs it up, or he could legitimately lose a fight, and that is yet to happen. Jon Jones has been in the UFC since 2008, and his only loss came by disqualification. That's when you do the math on that, that's a total of 15 years of dominance in a sport that you are not meant to win. You are meant to catch losses. And Jon Jones, besides that one disqualification loss, has yet to legitimately lose a fight in the octagon. Jon Jones is 27-1, former light heavyweight champion, and his current former 2-time light heavyweight champion, is currently the reigning defending heavyweight champion of the sport today. So in my opinion, Jon Jones is the best men's pound-for-pound fighter in the sport of MMA inside the UFC world. But that is my men's UFC pound-for-pound list, ranking the respective fighters from 10 all the way to number 1.